course or something. I kept it simple, and my presentation is going to be fairly simple. To give you some background of what I've been doing the last couple of years, in 2011 or even 2010, I got the opportunity to do a 4-year project, and it involves nanoparticles. I'll tell you about nanoparticles in just a moment. But it's in fact back to my roots in water quality modeling, and the result of that project should be me getting a PhD. So that's quite a different thing than I've been doing before that, which is maintaining and developing our software at Deltaris. Well, I'm in these final stages of my project, so I hope to get my PhD next year. Just to elaborate on this, what I've been doing these past couple of years is things like gather measurement data for the Rhine, for other waters in Europe. There's a lot of data around, data on suspended solids, on heavy metals, etc. And part of all that data I've been collecting to do my job, to do my project. And I get them from all kinds of institutes, like for instance the Bundesanstalt für Gewässerkunde here in Germany, but also Rijkswaterstaat in Holland, and the BAD in Switzerland. All kinds of institutes deliver this sort of data, and in all kinds of different formats. What I do with these data is I analyze them, I make a plot, I do some basic statistics. I'm not a statistician, so I keep it very simple. And I also set up numerical models. And the result at this moment is a whole bunch of small EuroTcl programs that do the job I want at that moment. So nothing for eternity, nothing for use by other people, at least not everything, but just a lot of things that just do the job I want at that moment. So now a few side steps about nanoparticles, because that has been my main topic for the past years. What I'm looking for, and what quite a lot of people in the world are looking for, are how do engineered nanoparticles behave. They are being used in all kinds of consumer products, in industry, to do all kinds of jobs. You have a lot of nanotechnology where this is just part of in your pockets. Your mobile phone, for instance, is based on nanotechnology, and nanoparticles are just part of that. But because they are used in consumer products, they also have the potential to get released into the environment, and the problem is, what will it do? So my first question was, how much of that stuff indeed enters the environment, the aquatic environment, so water, surface water. That's my interest. And what I'm looking for is, how do they behave in water aggregation? That is, nanoparticles are particles smaller than 100 nanometer, which is 100 of a 1,000 millionth of a meter. So quite small. You can't see them by the naked eye. You really have to use electron microscopes and things. They can stick to suspended solids. So clay, sand, organic matter, all that sort of stuff is floating in the water, and these nanoparticles can stick to them. Because they stick to the larger particles, they can also settle on the bottom, and so bottom-dwelling organisms can eat them up, and perhaps they have all kinds of problems with that. But also they are made of materials that can dissolve. So in the end you have a whole collection of processes which determine how much of these nanoparticles will survive in the water, and where they end up, what kind of organisms could have problems with their existence. So here's the kind of things I'm looking for. So particles with a size of 1 to 100 nanometers. Below that even, it's just dissolved. They're made of all kinds of materials. Silicon dioxide, so sand, titanium dioxide and zinc oxide. Those are things that are used in, for instance, sunscreens. Cerium dioxide is something which is used as a component of gasoline, of fuels, to make the stuff work better. Silver is known for its antimicrobial behavior, so it will kill all kinds of bugs, and therefore it finds its use in medical textiles, but also in sports textiles, because it keeps your clothes fresh for a longer time. Gold even, well, carbon, that's one of the things that's used for medicines, etc. Cadmium selenide, that's quantum dots, and that's one of the things which is used heavily in electronics, so your mobile phones and things, and perhaps in a few years flexible screens that you can just fold up and put in your pocket. Well, they have all kinds of properties which are interesting for industry and ultimately for us as consumers. Well, here's a very nice picture, but I'm not going to explain that very much. I'll just turn to the typical kinds of products that are used. For instance, here, cosmetics. I don't know anything about cosmetics, but you have a lot of it. Here you see a man with a half white face. This is the classical kind of sunscreen, and this is using these nanoparticles. So it's transparent, but it still will disperse ultraviolet light. So you have a sunscreen which keeps you just natural. Here, medicines. It's used to transport medicine inside your body, or at least people are working on applications like that. Here you have band-aids with silver to make sure you don't have any microbial infections. Well, this is for your bicycle. I don't know how that's used, but well. And here you have toothpaste using silver nanoparticles. Whether that's all useful, I don't know. But that's the sort of things I've been confronted with for the past couple of years. So, back to tickle.
Is there any natural nanoparticles for the last?
Yes, there are. Yes.
Which are not discarded because nobody cares. Now they say it's full since millions of years.
True.
You know those nanoparticles?
Yes. Well, natural nanoparticles have been around for, well, millions of years, of course. But right now, since I think 20, 30 years, we've been able to create them ourselves. And now they are being used in very different forms and amounts, and also different materials. So now we have the problem whether our environment can stand that. So that's what we are trying to find out. And I've been using quite a lot of tickle to do that. So that's the next part. Well, here's a result from my first paper. I tried to estimate how much nanoparticles are being used within Europe, and more especially what we can expect within the Netherlands. The things I've been concentrating on is zinc oxide, titanium oxide and silver, because those are things I can find data for. Both the classical form So measurements by Rijkswaterstaat and the BFG, and I can make some estimates of how much in the form of nanoparticles will be used. So this was the blue one is what's coming in at the border. I'm afraid that's the border between the Netherlands and Germany. And this is what we could, as Dutch, could add to that. And what you see is that even though these nanoparticles are said to be used more and more, they still have only a small contribution to the total contamination by zinc, titanium and silver. So that was the first result I obtained.
How do you measure that? Is it in tons or what do you measure? If you have a nanoparticle, it has a huge surface, but a very small volume and a very small.
Yes, but there are a lot.
Do you measure the surface or do you measure what do you measure?
Well, I myself look at the mass, so kilograms or tons per year being
but
released.
that might be leading you completely astray.
True. And there's quite a lot of discussion about what measure. Right. Well, that's quite true. You can measure the amount of nanoparticles in terms of surface or number of particles or mass. Mass is easier to handle. That's the main idea.
That's true, but the properties of the nanoparticles are especially interesting just because you have very little mass and
you're quite
you
true.
have a huge effect. If you have all the silver in there in one lump, you wouldn't see it even.
No.
So
That's
I
true,
don't
but
understand why you are measuring mass. So
well,
actually that doesn't say anything.
No.
No? Yeah, it is like that. If I have a cube of silver like this, and I make nanoparticles smaller than 1 nanometer, I can pollute the whole city with that. So what is mass says nothing about it.
you're quite right. The only thing is, what I tried. Well, you have to distinguish between water quality and ecotoxicology. I don't know what the effect is of all this stuff on organisms. I'm not a biologist or ecologist, so I'm just trying to get some grips on what's being used as a first step. And even that is difficult to get hold of.
Exactly, but that's exactly the thing that is interesting about nanoparticles. Otherwise, I'm in the conventional world. You have the classical physics and you have quantum physics.
Mm-hmm.
And with the nanoparticles, you are reaching into the world of the quantum physics, and mass like that is just classical. You can give it to Newton. He knows everything about it.
Yeah. That's true. You're quite true, yes. Yes, you're quite right. But the discussion about what is the correct way to look at the pollution by nanoparticles is still something which is discussed. So you can, of course, if you know the size distribution, turn this into a size, into a surface measure or a number of particles. So there is a connection between the two. But if you say, well, if you can consider the mass in nanoparticles being more or less comparable, well, how to explain this? Perhaps you should talk about it during lunch, because it's very interesting.
We'll do that. I'm very interested in this topic, as you can see.
Yes, I'm quite surprised. Christian is another one who's dealing with these.
But that's not about tickles. Yeah.
It's not a particle. And guaranteed is smaller than, I think, 5 nanometers. And,
Really?
And it's 100 ppms and things like that. So,
Okay.
you can talk about it.
Will do. Okay, well, here's a sketch of processes I've mentioned. Actually, this drawing was done with Tickle. I'm no artist, and when I draw on paper with a pen or a pencil, and I've always got huge problems with drawing on the screen. So what I do is I just write a Tickle script, which does a canvas like this.
Why not use PowerPoint for this?
PowerPoint and I are not on the right footing. LaTeX?
Oils are made by LaTeX, no?
No, this is really Tickle.
Yeah, but it's around, so...
Oh, no. This is PowerPoint. That's true. But I can only do text and insert a picture. I'm sorry. Here another example. Well, this is the result of one of my numerical experiments. The symbols are actual measurements from a laboratory experiment, and I try to get a model which is following these data as close as possible, and thereby explaining what kind of processes are important for nanoparticles and how fast these processes will work. So this is a result I had in my second paper. And again, this is done with Tickle plot chart effect. I must say the calculations to get to this nice result were not done in Tickle, because it's a huge calculation to determine these coefficients by calibration. But the final result has been done this way.
Are you using Fortran for that?
Sorry?
Fortran for that?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Now, I told you I get my data from different sources, and these are just 2 examples. This is from the BFG. So there's a bit in German, a bit in Dutch, all very unimportant. The only thing I want to know is what location and the name of the parameter. But if we get to the date, it's in a totally different format than what Tickle will do. Right here, it's actually the fields are separated by tabs, surrounded by quotes, and the date is luckily in format Tickle will accept right away. Well, it's all CSV type files, but the details differ. So what I do is I write a small Tickle program, for instance like this. I select the fields I want, perhaps a bit of manipulation to get it into the right form, and then after some selection I put it into plot via plot chart. I've got hundreds of these. They differ in the way I select my date. So sometimes I want the full range, sometimes just a single year. Select what parameter to plot, etc. It's all done with this sort of small programs. And this could be the result. The green line is the daily concentration measured at low bit, and the red dots are the values measured at Bieman, which is just on the other side of the border. So Lobit is on the Dutch side and Biemen is on the German side. I use this to see whether there's a relation between the two, because that's not immediately evident or even guaranteed. So this is just an example of one of these plots I've been making quite a lot of. Here's another one. It's a statistical plot. Here's the distribution, the probability distribution. The light blue ones are my model, and the pluses are the measurements I have available. And this is to show that, well, at least one aspect of the data, of the measurement data, is taken care of quite reasonably by the model. The way you make this kind of plots is by sorting the data and giving them vertical coordinates based on the rank within that sorted data set. Well, I mentioned numerical models, just to tease you a bit. Here's a small example of the sort of equations I solved them. This one represents the concentration of 3 nanoparticles, and I have 2 terms for the aggregation processes that take place, and there's a third one to describe how fast these particles will settle to the bottom. This is another parameter, and that's the concentration of aggregates of nanoparticles, and where this is being taken out of the free concentration, that goes into the concentration of aggregates, and that way you have a closed mass balance. This is another reason to look at masses rather than surface areas. It's easier. Well, you get plots like this. You have seen another example of this, so I'll skip it now. Of course, if I want to get my PhD, I have to publish articles. And nowadays I really prefer LaTeX to do that. Because LaTeX worries about the layout and I just have to write my text. The pictures in these articles are all PDF files, just files on disk, and the LaTeX processor will assemble everything and put another PDF file on disk, and I can distribute that. And quite a lifesaver in this respect is the PDF or TcL package by Dispute. This is enough to get it on into your PDF file. Of course, you have to worry a bit about the sizes and things, but what it does in my case is it takes the canvas and turns that into a PDF file. You can also use it to format your text and display labels, etc. in a PDF file. But my use is just, I have the picture on screen, I copy the canvas contents into the PDF file, and I'm ready for my article. I told you already, I don't draw on a computer, I just make a program. Results I get. Just to explain this is a sketch for a hydrodynamic model to show how that works. Here's the main channel, here's the tributary, and the flow goes according to the arrows. And my model splits up the whole river into small segments and keeps track of the concentrations and the masses inside these these segments. And here's some definitions of the various model parameters which are being used. Actually, the same thing for geographical maps. nowadays shapefiles are more or less the standard for that. And shapefiles are binary files, but their structure is fairly simple. So if you know what structure it is, you can just use small Tcl script. In fact, the script I'm using is on the wiki. And you just plot a nice map of the area you're interested in. So that's just another example of using Tcl for presentations. Okay. Being a PhD student and being involved in a network that's Europe-wide, I also got involved in a course being held in Luxembourg in March. And for that I prepared a few, a lecture and a few exercises for the students to work on. And of course, they're used to packages like Excel and things. I didn't want them to do any programming. They had to have nicely packaged exercises, fill in a few things, look at the results, and do some interpretation of that. So again, I use Tcl to do that. And I'd like to give a small demonstration of that. So this is the user interface. They start with a few examples. This is the most simple one. What I have here, and you recognize the canvas. I've got a few buttons here to set parameters like this. Treated means that part of the waste that comes from households and industry is treated by this wastewater treatment plant, and part is not, and that goes into the river, which is depicted very schematically. And these fish are all alive. That's what you do is, well, of course there's an uncertainty about the amount of wastewater which is being treated and which is not being treated. So you can give a range, minimum value and a maximum value which is being treated. Underneath these buttons there's similar kind of pair of input parameters, and if you run the calculation, it starts a multicolor simulation and ends up with an estimate of the total emission of nanoparticles to this river. It's quite fast, and because of all the uncertainties, all the spreading you have in the various parameters, you get distribution function, a probability distribution function like this, and it gives you some idea about what parameters are important, what parameters you should focus on to get this better, or to see what the influences are. So whether it is important to focus on this one, the effectiveness of the wastewater treatment plant, or whether it should be this one. So make sure that more and more wastewater is being treated. That's the sort of things you can find out here. So the second is a bit more complicated. It represents a typical column experiment that people do to determine how much the transport properties of a substance in soil. Here's a soil column. You have an inflow of water with a contaminant. That contaminant can be absorbed to the bottom material, to the soil material, and you end up with a number of profiles, the break-through curve, etc. And that's being shown over here. So with this you can vary the properties of it, and you can see how this changes. I'm not that familiar with the soils, and so I'm not going to tell you that much about it. Behind the scenes, the program solves a set of partial differential equations and shows the results in this form. So this is the breakthrough curve. This is the mass balance for what's inside the soil column, and here the soil profile. So they can experiment and see what happens with this sort of things. And of course, it's possible to set all kinds of parameters in the calculation and see what influence they have.
The solving of the differential equations you do with what?
Tickle.
Oh, with Tickle. Yes.
Well, it's not that large a model. It's, I think, 100 cells, something like that. But it's
is the ready-made package you use, or is it
No.
you have written this up?
I do it myself, yes.
But that's just a numerical solving.
That's just a
course.
Yes. Yeah, well, the system is simple enough, so it takes just a few seconds to calculate. But it can be done. Right, well, I won't show the last one. This is a river with a big city over here. You have some upstream contaminant coming in, a lake which causes some retention of stuff, and then it ends up in the sea. You can change the process parameters. There's an online help, also quite nice, just a text widget with a few tags defined. I can show the calculation, and that uses a table list to well, this is a Fortran program running underneath. Okay. So now I can show the results. Here I can select the parameters to show, and here the result of the calculation. The results come from a binary file, so again, I'm using Tickle to read these binary files. And again, a fairly simple format, but it's quite doable.
And this is again plot chart.
Yes. Okay. I'm quite finished. These are small examples of what you can do with modeling. More serious one, and that's what I'm working on now, and that's my third article, is a model for a run. And what I'm going to show you is a small animation that shows these results. And before I start that, what I did was I made pictures, like the the picture before. And that's 1 per time step. So I store the picture in a PDF file. I use ImageMagick to convert it to GIF and later on to an animated GIF file. Of course that takes a while because it's complicated background, the Rhine with the borders of Germany, etc. So my PC was running for a couple of hours, but the end result is quite nice. So what you see is the background. We see here the flow rate of the River Rhine for the year 2007. And you see here how the various fractions of nanoparticles will behave according to my model. Things come in here at the Rhine, Koblenz, Karlsruhe. You have a number of tributaries, and this is the dynamic simulation of how things go. I never use plot chart for this one. This is just some ad hoc code to show this graph, but it does the job.
What is this peak? What happened there?
This is this peak. It's well, you have these peaks because of rainfall in a short time. A lot of rain will fall, or over here you have the melting of snow in the Alps, that sort of thing, and that means that the flow rate of the Rhine and other rivers will vary over the year. And in certain times of the year you can expect quite a lot of flow.
So when it rains, you have more particles.
Not quite. I'm not sure I quite understand what's happening in the dynamics, but what you do see is that it goes through the system much faster, and that may have some influence on how you see these things. Well, that was my story.
I was expecting that most statistical visualization and these things are done with R. Have you ever considered that?
I have looked at it. Yeah, I've never been able to put much time in it, and I know it has quite a lot of facilities for calculation and everything. Yeah. And what I actually want to do is steal some of these things and put them in the code. Yes.
Critical feedback.
Yeah.
We are in the more or less the second half of our lives. Nowadays it's expected the same application to be working with the internet browser. So it should be no problem to run your article on a Linux server at the cloud, but your IDE was specific to the desktop screen and not HTML, while the effects you showed were so little, you can do this with a JavaScript framework, even with EuroTcl or Python or whatever on the server background. This is the expectation nowadays. In the automation industry, everywhere, it must all run in a browser. We don't want this deployment of applications, and especially you must, if you give somebody this code, must give it as gift. If you put it on the web, besides what you publish on GitHub, whatever, or in your PhD thesis, if you put it on the web, millions can use it, and you don't have one source of deployment and so on. So I know this from the last 10 years, and so yes, we have a wonderful IDE for visualization of our process environment, whatever. It looks the same in the client industry, the process industry, but no, we don't want it just on the desktop. We want it on the browser. So it's too late for your PhD thesis. You got it, probably. But think about it, if or the others, if there is a simple way to put the TICL graphics or whatever it was to make it run on the web. And I don't think it's the same with Python is, or let's say a C# program or Windows, whatever. It's the same. It always runs just on this screen with this VGA or HDMI stuff. It's not. It's totally different. It's just for the others, not for VGA. Because I was once in the situation, decade ago, the professor provided a special, well, it was an animated tool that was Flash, but there was graphics and BI, business tasks to do, but he provided every half year a new tool, so it was time out. But you could not copy from the screen, you could not make screenshots. Well, maybe it was wanted, but it was just this flash screen. Okay, Alt, on Windows Alt, full screen, yes. And there's a difference between us and the new generation who says, well, everything, we provide a TICL server, or we will use Apache, a TICL module, and same software in background, your algorithm, and so on. But there's this need in the industry, this wish to do it all on the browser. And of course, then you have an additional JavaScript layer.
Yeah. Well, I've no real experience with that sort of things. But I know Steve Rappler has been working on porting Botchar to that environment. Steve Rappler in the United States, he had a few years ago he did some work on transferring Botchar to a web server. I don't know the status at the moment, but perhaps I should get in contact with him about this sort of things. It would indeed be a nice idea. And perhaps even a necessary idea. It's just that I myself have very little experience here, so I will need some support.
Well, I just wanted to say that personally I'd like to see a web browser inside of TK, not TK inside of the web browser. Yeah.
Okay, if any questions, Arjen, thank you for your presentation.